on TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
I'm Piers Morgan, Uncensored. Tonight, 3 big guests. A Ukraine check. After 100 days of war, just how and when does the suffering stop? Ukraine's ambassador to the UK will be with me. Hero Dark 30, the US defence chief who blitzed bin Laden, will be here to talk tough on taking out tyrants. And Beast Lightning, Thunderbolt Hussein, the fastest man in history. He'll be with me too.
You can finally catch up with me now, Piers. I am both, and I am uncensored.
Well, if one man knows all about sacrifice, mental resilience and winning, it's probably the fastest man in the history of the world. And in my opinion, the greatest athlete of all time. Usain Bolt won 8 Olympic gold medals. He holds the world record in the 100 and 200-metre sprints. His blistering 9.58-second finish in 2009 remains unassailed. And his biggest achievement of all, I'm sure he would agree, in his most punishing assignment, was that he won Soccer Aid as captain in 2019, with me as his manager, and I inspired him to score. Well, Usain Bolt returns to the London Stadium this Sunday to lead the World 11 at Soccer Aid again for UNICEF, and I'm delighted to say Usain joins me now. Well, skipper, I still see you as my skipper. How are you?
I'm good, Piers, I'm good.
Now, obviously, you don't have your world-class coach with you this time, so how confident are you that you can win without me?
Well, I was planning to give you a call, get some tips just to make sure, keep the energy high, you know what I mean, ask you what to tell the guys. So I just need that energy, and I'm sure we'll do well.
Do you know what struck me, Usain, when I had the pleasure of spending a few days with you on Soccer Aid? I don't think I've ever seen anyone who tried harder than you to be brilliant at another sport. Obviously, you're the greatest athlete that's ever lived, but your dedication to football is extraordinary. You really do love the game, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. It's a sport that I really loved. Coming up as a youngster, and I watch, as you know, I'm a Manchester United supporter, so I definitely keep abreast of what's going on in the world when it comes to football. So when I play, I do want to play at my best.
A good friend of mine is Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously at Manchester United again at the moment. And you're very similar characters in the sense that I think at the core of your incredible success, the pair of you, is an almost unbelievable mental strength and resilience that goes with your talent. I mean, do you think that without that, you would have achieved anything like the success you've had?
No, I definitely think you have to be resilient and never give up, you know what I mean? You have to always want to do more. You have to never be satisfied, and I think I agree with you. I'm like, Christian is like that. He never gives up. No matter how much goals he scores, he wants to score more. I was watching him the other day, and he scored 2 goals, and he missed 1, and he was so upset with himself. You know what I mean? He just always wants to do more and do better, and that's the kind of mindset that gets you to the top and keeps you there.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it's a self-fulfilling thing. It's got to come from within, hasn't it? Because no one can teach that to people, I don't think.
I fully agree with this. You can't teach that. You have to learn that from a young age, and just through growing up and wanting something, you know what I mean? You can't teach that, because I've tried to explain to younger artists coming up, which you see have the talent, and they don't really understand, you know what I mean? So for me, I think you have to have that mindset and that drive to want to be the best and just want to be dominant.
Could you ever celebrate coming second, you say, at anything?
No, I feel like, no, definitely not, no.
That's all you had to say.
I'm a sore loser.
I knew the answer,
loser,
but the great champions are all sore losers, aren't they? You don't want to lose.
Definitely. No.
I want to talk to you.
No matter what we're doing.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, exactly, yeah. I want to talk to you just about a few things that are bubbling around the news, which I was really curious what your perspective would be on it. The first one is the England football manager, Gareth Southgate, came out a couple of days ago, and he was talking about the Euros final last year, where a young black player, Bukayo Saka, actually plays for my team, Arsenal, missed a penalty, and so did several other black players. They got abused, racially abused because of it by complete morons. And Southgate actually said the other day that, you know, it would make him think again in future about whether he would let young black players take penalties in that kind of situation, which I thought was an incredibly dispiriting thing for him to have to admit to. What do you make of that?
That's tough to hear. You know what I mean? I didn't hear this comment, but that's tough. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys, they don't understand the pressure. You know what I mean? Standing in front of so many people in the weight of England on your shoulder taking a penalty is no joke. And for somebody to say they wouldn't give that person a chance, again, to prove themselves, because especially Saka is very young. He's new to it, you know what I mean? It's hard on the younger ones. It's a learning process, you know what I mean? And he will get better over the years. So that's tough to hear somebody said about a black player like that.
I think he did it from a kind of protective viewpoint. I mean, he didn't want to expose them to abuse, but I don't think you can take that view, can you?
No, I think you have to give everybody a chance, you know what I mean? You have to give that person a chance to be himself, you know what I mean? You learn from your mistakes, and I'm sure you will learn from the pressure, and the more he plays football, the better you get. So I feel like everybody deserves a chance, you know what I mean? You should always give the person, the best player, the chance to go out and improve himself.
And what advice, you say, would you give to a young black athlete, sportsman, whatever, who's getting racially abused on social media, whatever it may be? You must have had this, I guess, over the years, because Twitter and so on is full of complete idiots. But
yeah.
What would your advice be to how to handle that?
For me, I stayed away from all social media, all media outlets. I never read the news, pretty much. When I started out young, I went through that a lot. And I figured out if I don't read the comments, if I don't read the newspaper, if I don't watch the news, then I won't hear, you know what I mean? My friends who are close around me, they understand that. They don't tell me negative things, you know what I mean? So I just stayed away from it, you know what I mean? If you don't read it, if you don't listen to it, you won't hear. So that's what I do.
I think that's very good advice. The less you read, the better, right? And the purer your head can be without this stuff in your head.
Yeah,
I want to turn to this whole issue of sport washing. You've got it with the golf stars at the moment who've decided to play in a Saudi Arabian-funded new tournament. And it's causing a huge furore. But at the centre of it, really, is this question of whether sports stars should have to be careful about countries they align themselves with for sport. I know that I don't think you've ever run competitively in Saudi, but you've certainly done some work there, speeches and so on. I mean, what's your view about this? Is there a line that you wouldn't cross?
For me, I think everybody is different. Views are different. In these times now, everything is different. It's hard to say what's going to offend people, you know what I mean? And it's really tricky right now. I have a team that kind of try to protect me or try to make sure we're on a straight line and to make sure we don't offend anybody as much as we possibly can. But it's tricky right now with what's going on in the world, with everything. You know, you have to be very careful with what you say and what you do nowadays. So it's just all about understanding a situation.
I mean, I look at it and think there's a lot of hypocrisy amongst the criticism, because if you had the Olympics in somewhere like China, and then I don't see an issue particularly with golfers playing in a Saudi-sponsored golf tournament, because to me, you either take a completely black and white view of human rights records of countries or you don't.
Yeah, as I said, it's all about how people look at things, you know what I mean? Everybody has a different view on everything. This is why I stay away from these things, you know what I mean? I have my team. I'm careful what I say. I just try to stay focused on me and try to do what I need to do to stay positive.
What do you think of this issue you're saying about trans athletes, which is obviously getting a lot of attention at the moment? A lot of people feel it's unfair for trans athletes to compete against women born to female biological bodies. You know, we could have a situation where if you wanted to, and you felt this way, you could identify as a woman and compete against women. Do you think that would be fair, reasonable?
For me, I always say I'm not the person who makes the rules. You know what I mean? Even when I was running and it was they always ask me about drugs and who should be banned, I always say the rules are the rules. I think a lot of rules will be changed in the future and it will be adjusted. So for me, I just go along with the rules as they are now.
But do you think when you see what's going on in swimming, for example, Michael Phelps came out and said he didn't think it was fair. Would it be fair for sprinters who've been born males to then transition and compete against women?
Well, that's not for me to answer, you know what I mean? I think, again, it's a tricky situation, you know what I mean? It's for discussion and it's not for me to say, you know what I mean? It's up in the air, I would say, but in time, as I said, in times things will change. So just give it time and see where it goes.
But just to clarify, you're not thinking of identifying as a woman anytime soon?
No. No.
You've got three kids, you say. They've got fantastic names: Olympia, Lightning Bolt, Thunderbolt, and St. Leo Bolt. So they've all, I would imagine, got the Bolt sprinting gene. Who's the quickest?
Well, right now, Olympia, my daughter is definitely showing that she wants to run. She runs everywhere. She's always on her toes. She walks on her toes like a sprinter. So that's something that I look forward to. But my boys are just one, so I'm keeping an eye on them.
Do you ever get... I've spoken to racing drivers. Jenson Button told me every time he goes out in a car on a normal road, there's always some bloke in a Porsche who wants to try it on with him at a traffic light and zoom off. Do you, as the fastest man to ever live, do you find that everywhere you go there's always somebody who wants to try and take you down? And what do you do about it?
All the time. It's all the time. For the older people, I just laugh. But if they really want to try, I'll race with them sometimes if I have time on my hands. And sometimes I'll let them win if it's a smaller kids, but if bigger kids, I won't let them win.
They've got to learn the hard way, you're saying. That's how you learn how to win. Jamaica's going through an interesting...
Yeah, but younger kids...
Sorry, go on.
For younger kids, it's much more fun to let them win, you know what I mean? Because they're really fans and they look up to you. But the older kids understand that it's not always going to be easy to win, you know what I mean? So I have to let them know you have to earn this. You have to earn the win, because
you say
older kids will brag.
Well, I never let any of my kids beat me at anything. The problem is that 3 of them now have got old enough where they beat me at everything. That's the problem. But I think that's the winning mentality I gave them.
You got to enjoy it. Yeah, you got to enjoy it while it lasts, you know what I mean? I definitely think I'll be that dad also.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We've just had the Platinum Jubilee for the Queen, are you saying? I'm just curious what you think about Jamaica. Jamaica looks like it probably is going to head towards independence. How do you feel about that?
For me, politics is not my thing. If you follow me throughout the years, I've always stayed away from politics, because politics is all over the place. You know, they're against one day and then they're with one day. So for me, I just stay away from it totally. I have no comments on that whatsoever.
Have you ever thought of being a diplomat, you say?
Yeah, just sometimes.
I've been trying here. Look, best of luck in soccer, right? It was a fantastic experience. It raises a ton of money. Robbie Williams, who set this thing up, it's an amazing event. Raises 10, 11, 12 million, and we had a glorious win together. And I'd like to think that my pre-match team talk, where I read Churchill quotes to you all, I think that may have been the inspiration. Can you confirm that?
I'm just saying yes. This is why I said I'll make a call. We'll talk off here. You tell me exactly what to say, and I can say it to the guys in the locker room. You know what I mean? But I just want to say to everybody, you know what I mean? Go on UNICEF website. You know what I mean? Donate. You know what I mean? It's for a good cause. It's for vaccination, to fight malnourishment. And it's wonderful, you know what I mean? So just come out and support and just give. All donations are doubled, so it would be great.
Well, if you need any last-minute tips on how to win, you know where to come.
Definitely.
Best of luck and great to talk to you.
All right. Thank you very much.
After the break, with no end in sight to the bloody war in Ukraine, is the only solution to take out the narcissistic bully at the Kremlin. Former CIA Director Leon Panetta, who oversaw the operation to bring down Osama bin Laden, is uncensored next. Well, we're now more than 100 days into the war in Ukraine, and the brutal conflict's in danger of entering a torturous and protracted stalemate. The UK is now warning the conflict could last as long as a decade. So, a pause for thought. Take a look at these 5 pictures and ask yourself what links them. Afghanistan, Yemen, Libya, Iraq, Syria. All devastating wars which cost thousands of lives, sparked humanitarian disasters, and all too briefly commanded the entire planet's attention. And then we moved on. So is Ukraine now in danger? It'll be the next that we simply move on from. It's what happens, isn't it? News moves on, politicians move on, government priorities change as voters fume about problems closer to home, especially with surging inflation. But there's no end in sight for the Ukrainians. The misery only continues. Vladimir Putin's forces now occupy 20% of the country, and up to 100 Ukrainians are dying every single day. And today, the chilling news that 2 British men and 1 Moroccan national have been sentenced to death by pro-Russian officials. They were captured fighting with the Ukrainian army in Mariupol. So how do we end all this carnage, this genocide? How do we make sure the world doesn't give up on Ukraine, which is exactly what Vladimir Putin wants us to do? Well, I'm joined now by the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK, Vadim Prystaiko. Welcome, Ambassador. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
I get this awful feeling that the news agenda, which was so Ukraine-dominated, is beginning to move on a bit. You know, people have their own crises at home and so on. And the hell for Ukraine continues. What is your feeling about that? What more can we do to keep Ukraine in people's minds?
Frankly speaking, I'm quite blessed here in this particular capital, in this particular nation, that is not, this process is not that obvious. But I agree with you. That's nature, human nature, news nature, government's nature to move on and other things, because unfortunately where there are so many of them, so many tragedies unfolding all over the globe. But we're trying to keep up this, the news about Ukraine or knowledge about Ukraine open for everybody here, and I have very receptive audience here.
There are many ways that this war can end. Some are not too bad for Ukraine, notwithstanding what's already happened. Some would be horrendous. What is the worst case scenario as far as you're concerned? Worst
is what Putin wants. He wants to reinstate whatever government he wants in Kyiv. He wanted to get all over this territory. He wants to get us back to the stables of post-Soviet republics. Some of them he already has in his stables. Now he is the biggest prize probably out of all the post-Soviet republics, Ukraine.
President Zelensky, who appointed you to your position only 2 years ago, must seem a very long time ago now that you were appointed, like I guess every ambassador. But when he was asked about Boris Johnson recently, he was extremely praiseworthy of both the Prime Minister, who's on a lot of domestic problems, obviously, but very praiseworthy of him and of the government here in the support that we have given to Ukraine. Who have been, along with the UK, the best allies you've had, and who needs to do more?
We have natural allies like, for example, Poland, who understand us so closely, who've been through so many things with Russians over the history. We have our Baltic republics, all of three of them who used to be in the same camp of Soviet Union, and they don't have to tell them anything. They know everything and they know the price. We have the Eastern Europeans who are next to our border. They're supporting us because they remember all this, times when the Soviet Union was coming with the hard hand, reversing what sort of revolutions they had over the years and years. So these people naturalize, the people understand. Obviously, United States, Canada, which is very close to all Ukrainian hearts. There are a couple of nations around the globe.
Is Putin the new Hitler, as far as you're concerned?
Personally, I believe that he is the closest one we can attribute to Hitler right now in this particular era.
And if he prevails in Ukraine, do you have any doubt that he will then try and expand and invade other countries and try and, as he sees it, restore the glory of the Soviet Union?
Totally. If you feed the shark with hamburger, it doesn't mean they will have to have hamburger each and every time. Next time they will need, cow or something bigger. And Ukraine, in comparison to what he had, Transnistria is Moldova, some places in Georgia, Azerbaijan and in Armenia. Now he is coming for bigger and bigger price. And if he has Ukraine, by the way, the biggest by territory in Europe, that's a huge nation, 40+ million people. If he has it, what will stop him for the next move in Europe? Do you think NATO? Well, they have to think.
You must have a lot of family, friends back in Ukraine. It must be a permanent worry for you. How do you deal with that, being here in the UK when all this is happening back home?
I managed to get my nephews here because their parents, my brother and his wife, they're back in Ukraine. The police officer, she's working there, has to be there. So we take care of the kids. I have my mom-in-law here. So we managed with the kindness being offered to us to bring them here, to allow them some safety.
Are we doing enough in this country to bring enough Ukrainians in fast enough?
You're doing much, but there is always not enough when you have people waiting on the bombardment for months for the visa to appear magically in your mailbox. So this is very painful, but we're working with your government, trying to resolve this.
When we came on air, 2 Britons and a Moroccan man captured by Russian forces in Ukraine have been sentenced to death. What is your reaction to that?
I had to react today because I was meeting with the family of one of them. I actually met with all of them. Right. 2 of them were mentioned today. And we are trying to find an answer how these people can be so brave, so patient at the end of the days, so courageous to face this tragedy. These women were trying to, each and every day they would receive the telephone call or video message from them in the captivity, in these so-called courts. This is very difficult tragedy, the people's tragedy, but we have now almost 4,000 people of our, and we consider your people, your nationals, as parts of our armed forces. They are treated the same way. They've been used for the exchange the same way. They were trying to get them out of there.
Finally, Ambassador, President Zelensky will speak at the Cambridge Union tomorrow, and I believe other universities. Just quickly tell me about that.
You know, this big gathering, we have Ukrainian sort of Students Association, which are in all of these universities. Most of those were very well known everywhere around the globe, not just here. So he will talk to the younger generation, not just Brits and Ukrainians, everybody who is studied there. And we hope that he will be able to tell the new generation why this war is relevant, why this war between new age and very old post-Soviet society as Russia is now.
Please tell President Zelensky we're huge admirers of his in this country. Not that he doesn't hear that from everyone, but I think he's a remarkable man doing a remarkable job, and we're all right behind you. Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
Well, picking up on that now, I'm joined by the man who, as director of the CIA, oversaw the killing of Osama bin Laden, the former US Defense Secretary, Leon Panetta. Mr. Panetta, thank you so much for joining Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Good to be with you, Piers.
Just discussing there with the ambassador here in London about the situation in Ukraine. Putin is slowly but surely barreling his way through that country. What more should the world be doing to try and stop him?
Well, we're 100 days into this war. We really have been through what I call 3 stages of the war. The first was a failed invasion by Russia. The world stood up, Ukrainians stood up, and were able to essentially stop the Russians from achieving their goal of getting the capital and bringing Ukraine down. The second stage is siege warfare and tremendous destruction and killing of innocent men, women, and children to try to break the will of the Ukrainian people. That failed as well. And the third stage is the one we're in now, which is this war of attrition, with Russia trying to gain territory in the east in order to have leverage, I assume, for negotiations. How long that war of attrition goes on, no one really knows. It could continue for weeks and months. It could result in negotiation, which is what the world obviously hopes for, or it could escalate into something worse. The decision as to what happens really rests with Putin and nobody else right now.
Henry Kissinger suggested that Ukraine may have to cede territory to end the war. The Ukrainians obviously don't want to do that. But is that something which perhaps becomes inevitable the longer this goes on?
I think President Biden was right in saying that that decision has to rest with Ukraine and with Zelensky. They're the ones that are fighting and dying, putting their lives on the line every day in order to defend their country. I think it's up to them to decide what the basis of any possible negotiation should be. I don't think anybody ought to tell them what they should or should not do. They're the ones that have fought for the right to decide what will be on the table should they negotiate.
If you'd still been Defense Secretary or even running the CIA, you know, every sinew in my body wants to attack Vladimir Putin, to take him on, to kick him out of Ukraine, to use the might of the NATO military, the most powerful ever seen. But he's been able to, so far, successfully rattle his nuclear sabre as a kind of warning card to keep people away. How long should we sustain that kind of threat where he simply says, if you do anything proactively here, I will nuke you?
Look, I don't think we can be intimidated by Putin. Putin has sensed weakness on the part of the West for a long time. That's why he went into the Crimea. That's why he went into Syria and Libya. And that's why he attacked this country with a very bold cyber attack against our election systems, because he sensed weakness. I think for the first time, the United States and our allies have come together in a unified way to say that Putin will pay a price for his aggression. And by providing the weapons necessary for the Ukrainians, by imposing the sanctions that are really hitting the Russian economy seriously, and by strengthening our position in the NATO countries. I think the U.S. and our allies have done the right thing in trying to stop Putin. Putin needs to be stopped. Bullies need to be stopped. And the message that went to Russia is frankly the same message that needs to go to China and North Korea and Iran and other adversaries. We have got to come together as allies in order to stop this kind of aggression.
I want to pivot just briefly. It's over 10 years, incredibly, since Osama bin Laden was killed in that remarkable raid. You were immortalized in a massively successful movie, Zero Dark 30, played by James Gandolfini, who apparently had to write to you before it even aired, apologizing for everything, he said, including his wig. So I want to play you a clip and then come for your reaction.
I'm about to go look the president in the eye. And what I'd like to know is where everyone stands on this thing. Now, very simply, is he there or is he not there?
I got to say, I thought you came out of that brilliantly, and I don't know you, but if I was you, I would have loved all that.
Well, I remember when Gandolfini wrote me a note and said, you probably don't like the way I played this role, but I really admire you. So I called him up. I met him at some events, and he said, I hope you like the way I played it. I said, look, it's a movie. I'm glad they picked an Italian to play an Italian. That made me feel good. And he came back and he said, he said, they made me use a lot of four-letter words. And I said, well, that's the one thing you got right.
It's actually a great film. I think that the best thing imaginable is when someone makes a big movie like that is that it's good. And I think not only was it good, but you had this amazing actor playing you. And as I say, I thought you came out as badass, Mr. Panetta. And that's really how a former boss of the CIA wants to be, right?
Well, it was a tremendous experience, and I give a lot of credit to both the military and intelligence people for coming together, working together, because that was the most effective way to counter terrorism.
Do you still get, just finally, do you still get people thanking you personally when they see you for taking out bin Laden?
I think the most rewarding thing that ever happens to me is particularly when a family of those that were killed on 9/11, when members of that family see me and thank me for bringing justice to bin Laden for what he did to our country. That's the most rewarding feeling of all.
Well, politicians get a lot of a bad rap over time, but that was a stunning moment, I think, for America, for that administration, for you personally. And so, 11 years on now, isn't it? Thank you for what you did for the world, because you took out the worst terrorist in the world, and that's got to be a good feeling.
It was very important to send a message to the world that nobody attacks our country and gets away with it. And I was very proud of that operation.
Leon Panetta, great to talk to you. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Well, school proms mark an emotional rite of passage in any teenager's life, but this one's truly jaw-dropping. The graduating class of School 134 in Kharkiv, Ukraine, returned to the side of their bombed-out school for prom night, marking their final day at school by waltzing in the rubble. Well, there you have it, Vladimir Putin, the irrepressible spirit of these remarkable Ukrainian people, alive and well through to the next generations, defiantly dancing in the face of your shameful onslaught, an inspiration to young people the world over. And as Leon Panetta said, never, ever give in to bullies. Uncensored next, tonight's Piers pack. They're riled up, ready, and they're coming soon. There they are. What a pack. Well, I have grave concerns about my next story. The world's gone nuts! Yes, if you sign up to study archaeology, you might expect to see bones, right? Just as training crime scene investigators probably expect they may have to look at pictures of crime scenes. Well, apparently not. 2 British universities have decided their courses should carry trigger warnings for their simpering snowflake students. The University of York is now alerting aspiring archaeologists that their course occasionally shows images and videos of human remains. Well, yes, that's the point of archaeology. And the University of Exeter now warns fledgling forensic scientists that crime scene pictures may be offensive or traumatic. Well, yes, that's what happens if you want to be a forensic scientist. This is all obviously preposterous. It's like writing may contain nuts, literally on a bag of peanuts. Just wait until they hear about biology. Well, fish and chips served by our local chippy, as we call it in the UK, is the taste of the British summer. But this year it's the chippies themselves getting battered. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has sent fuel and energy prices soaring, jacking up the cost of both the fishing and the frying. Prices of cod and haddock are up 75% in a year, sunflower oil by 60% and flour prices by 40%. TikTok has saved the day for one fryer in Coventry. The Binley Mega Chippy has incredibly racked up millions of views online after a catchy song about the chippy went viral.
Oh, this is hilarious. Binley Mega Chippy, Binley Mega Chippy, Binley Mega Chippy, Binley Mega Chippy.
It's sort of catchy, I guess. I'm joined now by Frank Nakra, whose family owns the Binley Mega Chimpy. Frank, great to talk to you. Can I just ask you, how tough is it right now to be in your line of work, given these extraordinary escalating prices?
Hi Piers, how you doing? It's a very, very difficult time of year, and it's with all the rising prices and the war in Ukraine. It's very, very difficult to actually maintain the margins and keep the staff on without having to raise prices too much. But we've managed to balance it out really well.
I mean, what you've done brilliantly is you've used TikTok to turn yourselves into a global phenomenon.
Well, the viral jingle that you've just been listening to, thank you for having done it, but we've obviously benefited in a massive way from it. And obviously we've set up our own accounts, obviously my account. I've put in on little TikTok reels and some Instagram, and to push it even further to gain more publicity. And obviously it's TV, press and interviews. But yes, it's certainly helped and helped create a lot of business and for the future as well.
If you could have a word with Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, what would you most want him to do right now for businesses like you?
Take the VAT back to 5%, that would be a great help.
Yeah, well, good point. We'll put it to him. If he has the gumption to come on the show, I'll ask him. Frank, good luck to you. I love the jingle. I love the business you're doing. I love the fact you're defying this, near recession now and doing a roaring trade. And next time I'm up there, I'll come and have a nice cod and chips with you.
I wish you would. And if I send you a T-shirt, this is all for charity. We've got something I've designed with me and a supplier. There's a website where you can actually buy all our merchandise, this particular merchandise, and every single penny that we make from that will go to charity.
You're
on.
If
I get a T-shirt to you and a mug, will you actually wear it on your show?
I probably wouldn't wear it on the show, but I might do it for social media for you, just to try and capitalise on your TikTok fame. Frank, good to talk to you. Get back to work.
Thank you very much, Piers. Take care, yeah?
All the best to you. Well, John and Esther, bit of fun. Oh, hang on, there's somebody at the door. Who could that be?
Morgan's Mega Chippy. Morgan's Mega
Thank you.
Oh, my God.
I've already had one today.
I know.
Now, John, what do you know? You've already had one fish and chip today. How often do you get stuck into two of them? I'll say these are very good. They're from local, I think, Ealing, right?
Okay.
Have a tip, please, Piers.
Just quickly, your reaction.
Tip.
I mean, honest...
Tip.
No, get out of it. Your tip is that you get to work with me every day. Let me just ask you, on a serious point, the amount these guys are having to pay extra just in the last 6 months alone because of inflation, Ukraine, all these things, and post-pandemic, really tough out there. What did you think of his idea of reducing VAT?
Well, I can understand why it would help him, but of course we have already an enormous debt burden which we accumulated during COVID, and to ask the Chancellor to find a measure which would cost an awful lot of money, I think it's better to target the help on those who really need it. But I do want to say one thing about what Frank was saying, because Frank is struggling, but there is behind the problems Frank is facing what I fear is going to become a global crisis.
Yeah.
Because if you look at those parts of the world that depend on Ukraine for their grain supplies, for their oil supplies,
Absolutely.
potentially we are looking at a humanitarian
I completely
catastrophe.
agree. I think this is going completely unnoticed by large swathes of people, is that what's going on in Ukraine, the stranglehold they have on things like flour, oil and stuff like that could be devastating in many parts of the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Esther, hey, great to see you eating
I
fish and
know.
chips. I know you're a fitness fanatic, so
I know.
I hope I haven't put back your regime.
Just by a few weeks.
What do you make, though, of you've got the fish and chip guy there, just a local business. We were hearing one of the crew, actually, his dad's been working fish and chip shops, and 3 of them have shut down in the last year. I mean, this is devastating.
I mean, so many shops on my high street have shut down, and I see it all over the place. You know, and you were saying that food prices are increasing all over the world. I believe wheat prices in Egypt have gone up by 250%. Can you imagine? They're the largest consumers of wheat in the world, and overnight, the price they're paying has gone up 250%.
And the longer the war goes on, the worse this is going to get.
And there's 25 million tonnes of grain sitting in the port of Odessa, and they can't get it out.
And
because of the Russian blockade.
Putin knows all this.
Yeah.
Right, so part of his strategy is to put a stranglehold on energy and resources and food, because he knows eventually we may have to wilt.
But we have to break the gridlock, right? Because we can't just keep funneling money to this war that we don't see an end in sight. I think that's a bigger problem as well, because these problems are just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse.
You know what? There's a lot of bad stuff going on out there. Have your fish and chips. And let's just try and enjoy at least that. That's it from me. Whatever you're up to, make sure it's uncensored. Good night. Thank you.
What was my biggest career moment? After spending about 25 years at Fleet Street, there's loads of stories I could tell you. But actually, I think I did an overnight show for Talk Radio in the early days, the night of the Brexit referendum. And that was actually quite a milestone because, of course, we started off thinking that Remain had won. And at 2:30, 3:15, after Nigel Farage had already said he'd lost, it turned out he hadn't lost. And it turned out we were leaving the European Union. So that was quite shocking.
This is Talk TV News.
Good evening, I'm Zora Suleiman. The UK has condemned the sham judgment after 2 British men captured by Russian forces were sentenced to death. Aidan Aslin and Sean Pinner were detained in April. They're accused of being mercenaries, but their families insist they were in Ukraine's military. Police searching for missing people in a lake in Devon have recovered 2 bodies. A boat capsized in the Rodeford Lake yesterday. Another person remains in a critical condition. And in what's being described as a dark day for drivers, petrol has exceeded £100 for the first time ever. The Prime Minister addressed the cost of living crisis earlier today, where he announced plans to cut taxes and help people onto the property ladder. Well, that's all for now. We'll have more after the talk.